Hi, I'm Weston. I love talking about the Jets, and I'm here to talk about Week 12, where the New York Jets win 31-10 over the Chicago Bears in an outright offensive domination. So, Zach Wilson's not looking great right about now, huh? So, briefly before we get into the game, the New York Jets today inducted Darrelle Revis into the Ring of Honor for the New York Jets, the 21st player, and the third player to be inducted this season. They have inducted Nick Mangold, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, and now Darrelle Revis. Three players who I spent the first many years of my Jets fandom watching on a gamely basis. And that's a massive chunk of my childhood that I've watched the season go into the Ring of Honor. And it's awesome to see these players that I grew up watching go into the Ring of Honor and be inducted and honored by the team. And it's also emotional and kind of hard because these are players that I remember watching like recently, and now they're retired and in our Ring of Honor, which I've said way too many times. And those three specifically, who were big pieces in the early 2010s for the Jets, but three pieces that were big for the 2015 Jets, which was 2015 was just the total renaissance of my entire sports fandom, because I liked them when I was younger, and then like 13 and 14 happened with the Jets where we were just god awful, and I just kind of stopped watching at different points. And then 2015 happened, and I got back into sports entirely and started watching every game again. And those were three huge components to that team. And so watching them go into the Ring of Honor this season has just been touching and emotional and beautiful all at the same time. And obviously the chance of seeing it is minute, but to Darrelle Revis, congratulations on a fantastic career. I have never been so happy to see someone inducted into the Ring of Honor. So on to the game. We'll start with the defense because that's the easy thing to break down. They looked really good. They allowed 10 points. They were on 2 drives to start the game where they would allow a field goal and a touchdown. You're like, oh no, the defense is not looking good. And then they just, for the rest of the game, they would bend quite often, but they never broke. They held tight. They locked it down. They did exactly what you wanted to. Forced a lot of punts, got an interception to seal the game late. Granted, the game was already kind of over. Forced a turnover on downs in this game. The defense looked good. Bryce Huff and John Franklin Myers, specifically on the defensive line, I thought had great games. Sauce Gardner, fittingly, on the day we induct Darrelle Revis, had a great game. Couple of nice pass breakups. He looks great. Absolutely fantastic. Sauce is all but a lock at this point for Defensive Rookie of the Year, and honestly, I would not be surprised if he got 1 or 2 Defensive Player of the Year votes. He has been that good this season. He has been the best corner. This is an all-pro in his rookie season at one of the hardest positions to adapt to out of college. And he has just come in running. I thought Sauce was fantastic today. That is nothing new. And boy, oh boy, I hope I get to say that every game for the rest of his career, and they're all in this uniform. So, we'll go to offense, and it was fantastic. The offense played a great game. They looked dominant from the first quarter to the end of the game. And the first thing I want to highlight, I'll highlight it on the first drive, but this was indicative of the entire day, was yardage for Mike White passing. 11 yards to Garrett Wilson on 2nd and 4. Next play, 12 yards to Tyler Conklin. Play after that, 9 yards to Tyler Conklin. Play after that, 16 yards to Knight. Player came in, subbed in basically, because the Jets' running back room has been kind of depleted because James Robinson was a healthy scratch today. And he had a really nice game, by the way. I'll put that out there. After that, 13 yards, to Garrett Wilson, and then the touchdown pass to Garrett Wilson to cap off an opening drive touchdown. The first one of the season for the New York Jets. None of those were 30-yard gains, but they were big chunks of yardage because Mike White has done and did today what we have been begging Zach Wilson to do all season long, all of his career, which is take what you're given. Mike White on the first drive and for every drive, he wasn't looking for these 50-yard bombs. He was hitting short gains and letting our playmakers do their thing. Garrett Wilson got to do his thing today. Elijah Moore got to do his thing. Ty Johnson, of all people, got to do his thing today. Conklin. Our players got the ball put into their hands and made the plays. And Mike White was confident enough and decisive enough to just get the ball out quickly. That was the main thing. Look at all of his throws. It was quick reads, sees an opening, and says, oh, look, I can gain yardage, and didn't hold on to the ball, hoping something better came along. That's been a massive gripe with Zach Wilson, is that he holds the ball way too long, looking for something way downfield, and ends up taking a sack or having to run for a couple of yards or throw it for just out of bounds so you don't get a sack. Mike White was decisive, and that's what you've been wanting all year. A couple drives later for the Jets, Mike White just hitting Garrett Wilson in a bit of space. It wasn't some 40-yard bomb through the air. It was like maybe 15 or 20 yards downfield. Garrett Wilson got to work, started making moves on the defense, and he went 54 yards for a touchdown. That's what we've been begging for. Just get the ball out. Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, all these players, they're athletic enough. If you get the ball to them, they're going to make defenders miss. And that's what the offense did today. I think the best throw of the day for Mike White was the 22-yard dart to Elijah Moore for a touchdown in the third quarter, which, gotta be honest, kind of funny that Elijah Moore's first touchdown of the season comes when Zach Wilson isn't a quarterback. I just think it's funny. And Ty Johnson would also get a touchdown later on. It was like a 32-yard touchdown rush. The offense looked great. I'm going to say this was the best quarterback game of the season because, and you might say, Weston, what about what Joe Flacco did in week 2? And I would say Joe Flacco was utterly amazing. I'm not going to take away from that. But those last 2 touchdowns came with under a minute 30. This was a complete domination by Mike White against the Chicago Bears. The offense looked great from the opening drive to the final drive. They looked fantastic. He was 22 of 28, 315 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, took 1 sack, a passer rating of 149.3. He was amazing today. He was absolutely amazing. And if you're Zach Wilson, you're grabbing your collar. I've seen a lot of people already say, well, Zach Wilson's gone, Mike White's the future. I'm not ready to go there yet because it is one game. And if you recall last season, Mike White had that amazing game against the Bengals, got injured against the Colts, came back against the Bills, and threw like 5 interceptions. So I'm not ready just yet to completely hand the reins over to Mike White. I'm not ready to say it's over, it's his team now. But if next week against Minnesota, he can go out and have a good game, just a solid game where he game manages, then I think it's his. If he goes out there and craps in his helmet against Minnesota, then I think you have a very tough decision ahead of you. But if he can game manage like 20 of 25 or 15 of 18, you just try to get whatever you can offensively, hope the defense locks down Minnesota, maybe a touchdown or 2, 1 pick or less, then I think you roll with Mike White for the rest of the way. But I got to have a second good game from Mike White before I completely put all of my eggs in that basket. So for the rest of the offense, Garrett Wilson had a fantastic day, 5 receptions for 95 yards, a pair of touchdowns. Probably the Rookie of the Week because, we're going to have one nominated, and Jets fans are hilarious, so probably the Rookie of the Week in Garrett Wilson. Elijah Moore had a pair of receptions, 64 yards, and a touchdown himself. Conklin was targeted, had 3 receptions, was also targeted 3 times for 50 yards. Conovan Knight, had 3 receptions today for 34 yards. He also was our leading rusher with 69 yards, over 100 yards of total offense for him in what's got to be his first game of the year, right? I mean, good for him to come out and have a really solid game. CJ Uzomah had a couple of receptions. He had 17 yards. Ty Johnson had a reception. The offense was really, really spread out from Mike White. A lot of different players had receptions. And you'll love to see the ball spread out like that. Rushing-wise, like I already said, Knight was the leading rusher with 69 yards. Nice. Ty Johnson had 62 and a touchdown. He had a really nice run where he broke like 3 or 4 tackles. The fact that Ty Johnson has withstood like 5 nukings of this franchise and is still here is hilarious. Michael Carter would leave this game injured, but he would get 6 rushes for 21 yards before that. You don't love him leaving with an injury, but I can't believe I'm saying this. The way the offensive line played and the way that Conovan White and Ty Johnson looked, if that's the running back room next week, I'm kind of confident. Today was a great day for the New York Jets. A great win. Build confidence in a lot of different players. The offense should feel great about themselves coming off of a week where they just kind of wanted to jump off a bridge. The defense gets to have its revenge, having another very dominant performance, and this time actually being able to be happy after the game ends. This was a great game and a very important game for not just the players, but the coaching staff. The offense was able to be, entertaining and actually pass the ball, which was fun to watch. And so this was very important. But there is the unfun reality that your next two games are both on the road against two Super Bowl contending teams in the Vikings and Bills, respectively. So, I am very, very interested to see how the Jets fare next week against the Vikings in Minnesota. That game's at 1 o'clock Eastern, and I'll be here afterwards to talk about it. But as for today, that is all I have. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day, and as always, go Jets.